The 6 to 7 Figure Show, Episode 6. Ready? Let's hit it.
Broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun outside Phoenix, Arizona, this is the 6 to 7 Figure Show. Tired of working so hard and having no time? Take your six-figure practice and turn it to a thriving seven-figure enterprise. And now, your host, author, speaker, mentor, and strategist, Frank Bria.
Welcome to the 6 to 7 Figure Show. I'm your host, Frank Bria, and today's episode is another of our fabulous hot seat conversations. Today with Stephen Crutchfield from the Villa Capelli, which is a beautiful resort in southern Italy that also sells Italian food products, so olive oil and the like. So I know if you're anything like me, and Italy's kind of a fabulous place to be, this is going to be a great discussion, a great interview, and Stephen has been gracious to donate his time here for this. Of course, he's working on creating an email campaign, and that's what we're talking about this week. So if you want to join in on the discussion, the place you need to be is 7 Figures Plus. That is our free Facebook group. You can get an invitation to that for free if you just go to frankbria.com. It's right smack in the middle of the page. Step 2 says, join us at 7 Figures Plus. Now, of course, step 1 is subscribe to the podcast. If you're listening to this and you haven't subscribed yet, do it. Subscribe, because next week we are going to be talking about how you drive traffic to your lead magnet and with your audience segments defined and this email campaign ready to go. It's all about driving traffic. So make sure you subscribe so that you can get all of next week's great content as well. But before we jump into next week, we're going to jump into our hot seat conversation with Stephen Crutchfield. Welcome, Stephen, to the program. How you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me, Frank.
Hey, it's our pleasure, and I'm excited to talk about you, your business, and to talk about the use of email to get things moving. So before we get started, why don't you give us a brief description of you, who you are, and what your business is, and what's got you keeping you busy these days?
Okay, my name is Stephen Crutchfield. I run and operate a Villa Capelli, which is a agriturismo in Puglia, Italy, with my partner, Paul Capelli. We have two branches of the business right now. One is a rental. We do rent out the villa to travelers for the week or for a room for the stay. And we also make and sell Italian products in the States. So that's our brand, Villa Capelli, and that's kind of what's keeping me busy. We've been here full-time about 3 years now. The business has been up and running about 8 to 10 years full-time kind of. And that's where we are right now. Yep.
Great. Now, one of the things I think that's fascinating about your business, and correct me if I've got this wrong, but you guys do a podcast as well.
Yes, exactly. We just started, so it's kind of exciting and fun for us. It's fun to kind of spread the knowledge of Italy. For me, it's a total learning experience. I'm not Italian background. So moving here and experiencing the culture, it's been fun and totally life-changing. And it's fun to share that with others. And that's kind of what the podcast is about, hopefully sharing a little bit of that culture.
Yeah, and I see it as what a great platform for getting your name out there and driving additional visibility into what you're doing. I think it's fascinating because I don't think a lot of people would have chosen that venue to get your name out there, but I think it's just terrific. It's a great idea.
And for us, it's been, it's been a great and easy transition to some degree because it provides the content that I need to start opening the conversation with people, which is always before it was kind of like, oh yeah, we make olive oil. Like, and how do you, that's not where you go up to somebody and shake their hand at a party and say, hi, I make olive oil.
Right.
Do you want to buy my product? And so this is like, oh, hey, we live in Italy. We have this amazing life. And, hey, do you want to be a part of it? And part of it is maybe buying olive oil, or part of it is coming here and staying with us. So for us, it's it's just a great introduction to our life, but also the brand as well.
Yeah, no, you've got it right, because that is the experience or the the experience that I think people want to have, right? And you're creating it in a way that wraps people in it, even though they're not there physically yet.
Exactly.
So that's terrific. All right, so today we're going to be talking about email, right?
Yeah.
So let's focus on what specific thing you want to drive email response around. Is it the food? Is it your villa? What is it specifically?
I'll say food. I think food is
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So currently, and I think you told me that you've got a list of email subscribers today.
Yes.
How big's that list approximately?
Around 2,000.
Okay. And how have you been gaining subscribers?
It's through other means of advertising and usually through checkout. So customers can opt into the newsletter. That's probably 90%, 95% of what on the list. Okay,
so specifically the call to action there has been get our newsletter, generally speaking.
Yes.
Any other kind of campaigns that you've run that are a little bit different than that? I mean, one thing that some people do when they amass a large list is they've come in through sort of different messages, so you might have different kinds of people mixed in there. Is that the case for you, or is it pretty consistently you've got a newsletter, opt into the newsletter?
First, I would say 90% of that is, at least 90%. Okay. I did start dabbling. I haven't had the time to sit down and do like a true funnel, which everybody might or might not know. It involves a lead magnet, and you get that person to download the lead magnet. By downloading the lead magnet, you get on your email list, and then you have your email autoresponder. Yep. I started with that process, and I explored it a little bit. I felt like it. I just didn't feel like I had it right yet, and so I kind of stopped a little bit. And I felt like I needed to get. I know it's not necessarily part of this call. I needed to get my lead magnet correct. And then I felt like the emails along those responders, it was difficult. I was having a hard time figuring out how do I develop the relationship and also sell, because it's just such an odd. It's an odd product to some degree. You're asking somebody to buy food they've never tasted, so you're trying to create this again, trying to create the allure, and hopefully they get an idea, and also educate along the way too, because there is a large story for us with olive oil, especially. A lot of people don't realize that a good 90% of olive oil out there is total crap. It's doctored. There's a ton of fraud in the marketplace. So you might be going to the store and thinking you're getting a great deal for $6 or $7 for olive oil, but you're not really buying olive oil. You're buying some chemicals. You're buying crap. There's lots of marketing terms that aren't true, like light and pure olive oil. They're true in the sense of that's what they are. They're light. They're light in everything, not except for calories. They're light in taste. They're light in antioxidants. They're just full of crap.
Got it.
So part of that was educating people, but it still felt like, I don't know, I was a little bit struggling with that part of it. And so, I mean, so I don't know if you want to talk which one you want to kind of go towards.
Well, you tell me. So do you want to focus on an email strategy post for this new funnel, or do you want to talk about how do we market to the existing customers we have? Which one would you rather focus on?
I would think the funnel is going to help me more. Because I think existing customers right now, we can send out. We don't do it often, but we use that more for like, oh, by the way, we're putting this on sale, and we get lots of response. And I feel like that's kind of where we're going to be right now. So my hardest thing is the funnel.
Okay, great. Because generally, I talk about email strategies as falling into two major groups. Okay, two types of things. First is what I'll call a short-term action campaign. This is where you want your email subscriber to do something in a very short period of time, usually in about 2-week time frame. You give yourself a week to 2 weeks to kind of build up to some kind of an action, and you want them to take action. Obviously, the time depends on how much money you're asking for and your target market, but generally speaking, it's a 1 to 2 week time frame. Then there is the what I call care and feeding email strategies, and this is where you've got folks who are already subscribers. They either took action before or chose not to take action, and now they're just sort of sitting in a list, and you have to come up with some way to reach out to them on a long-term basis and get them to engage, either to buy for the first time or to buy multiple times or whatever. So it sounds like your care and feeding is what you're doing to your existing customers, and that if you are going to build a funnel, you want to execute around a short-term action campaign, right?
Yep. Okay.
Okay. So let's start with that. So if you get a brand new email subscriber, what is it that what would be the first entree into doing business with you?
That I would want them to actually take action and buy something?
Yeah. Like, have you defined what that action is? Or is it just generally come to the catalog, see what we've got, and pick out something good? Or is there kind of a good beginner's entree into doing business with you?
The good beginner one would be, the olive oil. And that's our kind of our flagship product. So to me, that would be the kind of intro to us, is buy the olive oil, see the difference, taste the difference.
Got it. Do you have any kind of a starter set or something like that? Like if someone comes in brand new, they don't know anything about you, and they are sold on this concept that you've got to have the right olive oil for the right reasons. Is there a package or a bundle that you have put together or could put together which would sort of be indicative of, this is the first thing you should buy if you're just starting looking at this?
We don't, but I think that's a great idea. I could easily implement that, because we do have collections that I could easily just put a collection together, and that could be a starter kit. Yeah.
So one of the things that is difficult in the e-commerce space is getting people to take action generally, right? I mean, come buy something from me is kind of a weak call to action. What you want to do is you want to walk them through. I mean, you're going to have to take your customer and lead them by the nose through this process, and you're going to have to lead them to that very first product you want them to buy. So I think you guys need to think through what something like that would be, and it's not random. It's going to be very specifically related to this call to action. So won't we back up to there? Why your olive oil?
Lots of reasons. Again, I kind of alluded to before. It's the real thing. You're getting quality olive oil because it's coming right from us. It's straight source, no middleman. There's lots of others. The taste. This particular olive oil down here in Puglia has a little stronger bite to it, which is actually higher in antioxidants. So you can kind of go in the health route a little bit. To try to think of the different angles. Mainly, it's you're getting a good quality olive oil, which makes a world of difference. People don't know that most olive oil they're buying is just lubrication for all intents and purposes. And this one has a taste. It makes your food taste better. It makes everything you cook with it taste better. Even if you're putting it over salads, it makes that taste better. So, it makes all your meals even more amazing. And the health benefits obviously I can go into that for forever too.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I've heard two kind of major benefit families, if you will, right?
Yep.
One is food and taste, and the other is health properties,
Gotcha.
Right?
Yep.
Which one do you think is more compelling to your audience? If you had to pick one.
I think food and taste.
Okay, so food and taste. Yeah. And when you're talking with people about this, is this something that that you have good stories around, or that you've got things that you can demonstrate or show?
To a degree. Again, it's hard. I mean, I have like testimonials I can kind of go. I can create stories around that. Mm-hmm. It's with food. It's harder to do. Obviously, a demo because it's not in front of the taste.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Right.
And you can't give them a free trial because a free trial, you're buying a food product. So that's the kind of the challenge I've been having with that kind of thing. Yeah.
Are there ways that you can use your olive oil in a way that would be different, like new and different for people? In other words, are there creative ways to introduce a better olive oil into your meal? I guess the question I'm asking is, is there something? Am I being, am I using olive oil incorrectly because it's not taste? It's not a taste to me. It's something else.
I think where you're.
But if I really got the taste, then I would use it in a different way in my cooking, and it would really show up differently for me.
I think that's exactly what you're saying is pretty much right on point in the sense that most people probably would never pour their olive oil they use now, even like over meat or over roasted vegetables because it's
right.
It's kind of it doesn't taste good. But this actually is what you do.
Yeah. Right.
It brings out those flavors and it's delicious. So yeah, that probably is new to most people.
So I'm wondering if you can't create a campaign where you're showing people essentially recipes because you don't. You want to the way that a good email funnel works is that you have to build up the need over time, right? Because when someone first starts talking to you, they don't know that they need better olive oil, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So the way that I look at this is the following. There's a really good way to construct a short-term action campaign is by looking at somebody who is it's as if they're going into a mall shopping, okay? Yep. So if you walk into a mall, I don't know that I want to buy anything. I'm just kind of wandering around. So it's almost like I'm just loitering in the mall. I have to be given some message that's going to attract my attention. And it has to be clear and crisp that it's focused on me, right?
Yep.
So we need to find a good target market, a good niche that would be interested in hearing this message about the olive oil, right?
Yep.
Then the next thing we need to do is we need to paint a picture. So I go to a store, I look in the window, right? So I'm seeing the product actually being displayed or used, right? I mean, you don't usually go to a furniture store and just see all of the beds stacked up against the wall, right? Yeah. They're set up, they're laid out, they've got bedspreads, they've got pillows, they've got all this other stuff because you're seeing now the product being used in a way where I can now imagine it in my own home, right?
Yep.
So we need to do something similar. Then, once I've kind of caught the vision, now you've got me interested. Okay, so how do I achieve that in my own life, right? And it needs to be a life-changing message. And I know for a lot of business owners, they think, okay, well, it's just olive oil. How could it be life-changing? Like, we need this to be life-changing, Stephen. Seriously. We need to think about how we position the better use of olive oil in your cooking in a life-changing way, okay? Then we move to the next step, which is, all right, so now you got me hooked. Why? And you'll notice that shoppers, when they do this in a store, they kind of come to this place where they actually start shopping and not just browsing or looking. Yeah. And they start taking things off the shelf. They start comparing things. They start looking at tags. They start reading labels. They're interested in facts and figures. And it's only at that point that we need to get into the facts and figures because we've hooked them. And then, of course, if we are successful with that part, we get them to a place where they say, great, I need to find the cash register. How do I buy? And then we make the transaction easy. So in a short-term action campaign, the way that looks is this. You send out a first email, which, as you pointed out, you've got a lead magnet you need to come up with. But once you've got that lead magnet, you're going to deliver that lead magnet, and you're going to introduce yourself and your company, right? Yep. So you deliver the lead magnet, and you say in very crisp and uncertain terms, this is who we are, this is who we serve, and this is what we do.
Okay.
Then what we're doing is we're creating a series. So at the end of every email, we're going to create a hook. Because people love cliffhangers. So at the end of every email, we're going to say, oh, and tomorrow I'm going to do this. So the way it works is we're going to use storytelling. And that's why I want you to think a little bit about examples or stories of customers that you've had that have told you that now they're doing something phenomenal with olive oil that they never did before, okay? Or we're going to come up with a case, like we're going to come up with a hypothetical case study, but we're going to tell a story. And we're going to tell a story that essentially is dramatic. So the challenge here is to come up with a way of talking about a life-changing experience with better food using olive oil that we can tell a story around. And I know that sounds really dramatic, but there are tons of ways of doing that. Once that second email goes out, we're going to start telling a story, and we're going to bring it to climax. We're going to basically say, hey, this is all of the bad stuff that's happening, but guess what? There's a solution to that, and bring it into the next email. The third email essentially resolves the crisis, says, by the way, our product is what resolved the crisis, and then we move into a final email that says, and this is how you get it. Now, we can adjust this slightly. This, by the way, would work really well for health benefits, right? Because if you had a great story about cholesterol or whatever, and you talked about this, there's great ways to do this. But I think there are still really good ways to do this just about better eating, okay? What I think that you want to do is to demonstrate, as you pointed out, it's tough to do food over the internet, right? You can't taste it, you can't see it, you can't touch it. Well, you can see it, you can't touch it. But you can see it through video. And so I think however you do choose to do this, I think video is going to have to be a compelling part of this, okay? I think that to bring kind of drama to what the difference in olive oil is, one way to do that would be through a taste test.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've thought about doing some kind of a video taste test of actually olive oil on something that would be seemingly unusual, like you point out, roasted vegetables or meat, which I think most Americans would say, what?
Well, I mean, we can do a taste test. We have done this before at the Villa with guests, which is a taste test, just literally tasting it from drinking it from a glass, ours versus another brand's.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing the difference. People just, their eyes are like, wait, well, what? It is mind blowing. It's cool.
Yeah. So I think capturing that on video and having that be part of that second email that goes out, where you're like, hey, did you even know, like, believe that there would be a taste? Who would want to taste just oil by itself? Like, what taste could there possibly be? I think that's kind of an interesting thing. People would want to see that, like watch the amazing results of the taste test, which brings them to a video that they can watch to see what that is. Then you want to take them to a third email, which says, okay, so why was this so different? Because now if people are interested in seeing the potential, and it's not just a taste test that you want. I mean, the taste test is, I think, the hook. But I think you also want to demonstrate how you use the olive oil on foods that people would never think of. Well, because the oil actually has a taste.
Yeah.
You can now do all of these great things that you never could before. I mean, could you imagine taking your off-the-shelf, quote-unquote, olive oil from the supermarket and putting it on, like, potatoes or something like that? Like, who would do that? But now this has a taste. Like, you can actually do this, and it changes your whole meal, and demonstrating how that sits in the whole thing. What you've done is you're teaching your customer how to use your product. Cool.
No, I get it. Yeah. And you used to recommend video for that?
I think video is the right venue for that, because I think as you point out, there's going to be this gap because it's food.
Yeah.
And the closer you can get to reality for this, the better off you are.
And just add one quick addition to that. I guess it depends on our brand and how we want to approach it, but do you see like romantic pictures of this happening, or is it like me holding up an iPhone being real? And like, this is how we use it at the Villa. And this is what I do.
Yeah, that's going to come down to the target market that you want to select.
Okay.
And I do think that because when you get talking about a lead magnet, you're going to want to be very clear about who you're trying to target here. Are these housewives? Are these young couples, young urban couples that are foodies? Like, I think you need to find for this campaign, a very focused target market. I think if you cast a wide net, too wide of a net, and just say, hey, anyone who's interested in Italian food, that's just too broad, and you're going to have a hard time finding messaging that is focused. So, for example, if you decide that your best customer is sort of a traditional kind of housewife is trying to find something unique to do for dinner, or it is going to be more romantic, right? Okay. If you did something more like urban couples, foodies that are then I do think the iPhone kind of sort of single camera view is better, but it's going to come down to that target market.
Okay.
Do you have a sense of what that looks like yet? Do you have a sense of markets that work well for you right now?
It's usually to some degree, yes. I mean, this is kind of more conjecture than me actually looking at actual facts, but it seems to be more housewives with kids, families, that kind of thing.
Okay, then I do think the more romantic, I think you're going to want to make the video look as close to the where it would be in their home as possible. So if you can set a table and make it look like it's part of a meal, rather than just sort of on a counter, you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
So if you do the taste test literally as if it was at dinner time, I think it makes it's gonna connect better with your target market than would be if you just kind of did like a Coke Pepsi taste test kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I think you're telling a story here, right? So whatever lead magnet that you're using, I think is probably going to be related to getting good recipes, right? I mean, I think that's probably one really good way to do it.
Yeah.
But, you're going to deliver on your lead magnet in email 1 with a brief description of who you are and what you stand for. So this is going to be, this is who we are, this is what we do, and we are all about authentic products that are going to make your meal better. That's what we do. Short, sweet, that's it. At the end, you're going to say, and tomorrow I'm going to send you a video to show you what can happen, what your meal looks like if you use the right ingredients.
Okay.
And then just leave it at that. Total hook. You've left enough curiosity. The next day you send an email that clicks to a video. It starts with a taste test. It does it and by the way, now that you know that the taste of olive oil matters, here is here's a full meal that uses olive oil in a really unique and fascinating way that you never would have thought of before. And look at how much better it makes everything. And of course, presentation is going to be everything in this video because you're going to want to make it look like the best meal ever, right?
Yeah.
Then at the end of that, you're going to, hey, by the way, tomorrow I'm going to talk to you about why the oil. So in that second video, when you've done the taste test, you are mentioning that it's your olive oil, but you're not selling at all. Right? It's just purely demonstration.
Yep.
And then at the end of that, you're like, hey, tomorrow I'm going to tell you why the right olive oil matters and why if you choose the wrong oil, you cannot get what we just demonstrated to you. Then the next email, you can do this with video if you want. It could be just an email if you want, but this is going to be facts and figures. Here's where you're going to talk about why the olives in your region of Italy are better, why the stuff that you buy off the shelf in the United States isn't good enough. These are your facts and figures. These are all the things that you just talked about.
Yep.
And I would add in the health benefits as an add-in. Now, I wouldn't spend too much time talking about this if you didn't lead with it, because what you've done is you'll be spending a lot of time talking about benefits that your audience may not care about. So it's nice. It's kind of like a nice advantage, but I wouldn't spend too much time there.
Gotcha.
And at the end, you're going to also leave them hanging a little bit. Now, the conventional wisdom would be to finish that up with a link to your cart, but you're going to do that tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So you're going to say, and tomorrow I'm going to show you how you can get started with all of this easily. Okay. So now what you've done is you've hooked to the transaction. This is where your bundle is going to be really important, I think.
Okay.
Because in this final email, you're basically going to say, okay, now you want to get started with the olive oil, but you don't know where to start. We've fixed that for you because this is the starter kit that you want to buy that gets you started with trying, here maybe a couple of different flavors. This is going to be useful for vegetables. This is going to be useful for something else. Put it all together so that you've basically bundled a starter kit. And you said, this is the product you want to buy. Gotcha. And that way you're leading them directly to a very specific, you're not having them float all over your shopping cart. They can do that later. That you're going to lead them to that very first product to basically start the relationship off. Because people, strangely enough, don't like choices.
No, I think it's great. I mean, and the starter kit just to me is like helps a lot because, and obviously I've always had a hard time too. I was struggling with, do I send them to a landing page, which is kind of weird to me because we already have an e-commerce site,
right?
So which is like you said, my catalog. But having a starter kit is kind of then my landing page.
Yeah. Well,
sort of.
I mean,
but you don't get what I'm saying? Like I was always struggling. Like a landing page was overkill for what we do.
I mean, there's no good hard and fast definition of what a landing page is. What I look at as a landing page is it is a very specific thing that has one intended action out of it, right?
Gotcha.
And so if you're sending them to a special page that has a special starter price, that's a landing page. Okay. I mean, it could still be a part of your e-commerce site, right? I mean, you create a product, it has a product page, it has special pricing, whatever. You can do that in your e-commerce software. But you're sending them directly to that, and the call to action is to throw it in your cart and buy it.
Yeah.
You can choose to upsell afterwards, right? That's a more advanced technique. Once they put it in their cart, you can say, oh, and by the way, here are 2 or 3 other things that would go along with it. You can do that too. That's not landing page functionality, right? That's like one-time upsell functionality. It's a different kind of a funnel.
Yeah.
But it's effective. But I would say just for this, you want to get them to buy from you as quickly as possible because that's the whole point of a short-term action campaign.
Yeah.
You're training people to buy from you.
And that's what you're doing. And for me, that's the important part is again getting that first taste because I mean we believe once you taste it, you're going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So for us,
sure. I mean,
it's a matter of getting you to try it, and that's why.
That's right. Yeah. And it's a standard psychological thing with every customer. Like the ones who buy are most likely to buy again. I mean, that's just the way it goes. So if you can encourage them and train them to buy from you, then it's easier to buy in the future. They're already a customer, and there's all sorts of things that you can do from that point on, right? Okay. You can send them coupons to the same thing they bought before, or upsell them to something else, or start to understand their buying habits and all sorts of really advanced techniques in e-commerce. But the goal, of course, is to translate a lead into a customer as quickly as possible.
Oh, yep. I totally get it.
So what do you think about that sequence? Does that make sense? Does that work? Totally. Are there questions you want to ask?
Totally makes sense. I mean, the only other question I have is, and I think I know the answer, but I'm just curious on your point. I mean, obviously, sure. So then I could use this same technique, obviously, which everybody else listening out there. But if I wanted to create a different lead magnet, but then my emails is a totally different sequence, obviously. So say I wanted to go then after the health nuts or the healthy people. Then I have a lead magnet that's all about health. Then my other corresponding emails use the same kind of system, but they're all about health.
Correct. Yeah, right? And there you're telling the story of a gentleman with bad cholesterol or whatever, and suffering bad health, and it's affected his life in this really bad way, and you bring that to crisis, and then at the end you go, and by the way, tomorrow I'm going to show you how he made that all go away with one thing that you never would have thought would have been the answer, and then the next thing you say, the antioxidants, et cetera, cancer cause, whatever the health benefits are, you tell the story that way, and yes. You do want to line up the lead magnet with the story because actually that's one of the biggest mistakes people make in email marketing is they throw out a lead magnet to try to capture their audience, and then they send them emails of stuff that doesn't have anything to do with what attracted them in the first place. that's, and then you get this disconnect, you get opt-outs, or worse, you just get people don't do anything at all. And you keep trying to like activate them in some way, and really it's just a mismatch of message.
I think that's what my problem was in the beginning. I had a very lead magnet, and it was in a very broad email. It wasn't specific enough. Like this to me feels much like I am creating, like you said, you're creating the need and then presenting the product that solves that need, which clicks in my head. I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Again, I one of the first things I do with almost every one of my clients is to focus them. Really, really focus. Like, let's think about the very specific market. But I can help everybody. Yeah, I know you can help everybody. But today we're only going to help a small little group of people.
Exactly. But it's hard because you feel like if only everybody tried my olive oil, they would be, but it's.
It is really hard. I totally agree with you. It's probably one of the biggest mindset shifts that an entrepreneur has to get through is to say, I've got to temporarily focus. But the focus works because you can see you couldn't pull off that kind of leading the customer by the nose and the magic of all the language and everything until you really focus down on what their needs are and get in their head. I mean, and as far as lead magnet and language is concerned, there's even more work for you to do here, which I would encourage you to do. And that is to sit down and literally write a client profile here. What is this woman's specific pain? What's keeping her up at night? What is difficult about getting dinner together every night? Like all of that stuff. Like you want to get in their head. Exactly. Because the more and more you do that, the more and more you're going to be able to connect emotionally with that person.
Yep, gotcha.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, all right. Does that give you some work to do?
Yeah, it does. It gives me lots of work to do. Which
good.
is a good thing. No,
good. Awesome. Well, Stephen, let us know how it goes when it launches. Drop us a note and let us know so we can follow the progress and see how that moves along. And we talked about this before we started the recording, but I'm Italian heritage too, so I'll be particularly interested in what you have to say.
It's exciting. I'm excited about it. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, thanks so much, Stephen. Really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
That's all the time we've got. I would love to spend more time talking about Italian food and olive oil because I'm Italian, so that's the way to get me is to talk about Italy. Anyway. But hopefully that you've learned something from this conversation. I know Steven's got lots of work to do to put his email campaign together, and I can't wait to hear how that turns out. We'll have him come back and tell us how that all went. But in the meantime, if you want to get help with your own email campaign, if you want to talk about it with other folks, bounce ideas around, 7 Figures Plus is the place you need to be. If, however, you're serious about implementing it, then the Scale Mastermind is where you need to be because we're actually working on this stuff right now. So the place to be, 7 Figures Plus in the Facebook group if you're not there already. If you need to get some help with this, you need to join the Scale Mastermind. You can always do that by jumping over to frankbria.com/mastermind. That's where you can find that. Or just jump onto one of our free 7 Figures training webinars that we have, and you can find that at frankbria.com, right smack in the middle. There's step 3. Join us for a free 7 Figures training. But one of those two places is where you need to be, either 7 Figures Plus to start talking about this, or in the Scale Mastermind, frankbria.com/mastermind, to do it, to get it done, to get it implemented. All right. Hope to see you there. Thanks so much for taking the time to spend with us today talking about email campaigns and listening to Stephen work through how to develop one for his business. And I have been your host, Frank Bria. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. And until next time, make it happen.